be able to adjust that light, either a single light or an entire street or a section of Airmont. So it really gives you control at your fingertips to adjust that lighting. Now, what is not in effect today, but what is very likely to be in effect sometime in the near future, you'll save a lot of energy by having those smart controls, but today you can't save any money. Massachusetts and a couple of other states now have led the charge that are obligating now the utilities to adjust their billing so that if you're reducing the intensity on those streetlights, you'll be billed less money. I can't promise you that's going to happen. I can't promise you when that's going to happen, but it's likely to be an additional benefit for having the smart control. It's important for you to make that decision now rather than later for two reasons. If you should go for the conversion today and put off the decision about incorporating smart controls, you'll have to pay for the additional bucket truck and installation of those smart controls at a later date. And secondly, the smart controls are going to replace the photo cell, which is the dusk on and off mechanism that controls your lighting. So if we put in a standard photo cell today and then sometime in the future you want to replace that with a photo cell, you've lost the cost of that existing photo cell, which we'll have to replace, and you'll have the additional installation costs. So if you're leaning towards the incorporation of smart controls, which most of the communities in New York State have done, you're better off doing it today rather than tomorrow. That's kind of a summary. Again, in a short period of time, you'll have a very detailed report, which is the investment grade audit. And in that report, we'll have the final 6 fixture selections, we'll have the final settings on each one of those fixtures, we'll have all of the photometric lighting designs. We'll sit down with Ralph or whoever else in the municipality would like to hear about those results and explain all those details to you. And then from that point on, then we go to procurement and installation, which should be pretty quick given the size of the project. On the financing side, and I know we've been following that very, very closely. We've given instructions because there was a hard, fast date limit on making sure that you got that 1-year extension on your lease financing. We gave the most conservative number to municipal lease consultants to pass on to the lenders in terms of that lease. If in the end you should choose for a less expensive option here, it's not a problem. We can lower the lease amount. But it was better to give them a higher amount, a conservative amount, and reduce it rather than give them a lower lease amount and then you're in trouble and you can't finance the project. Mm-hmm. So we hit the deadline on that.
Okay.
Now, again, we'll be delivering to you the final report. But I wanted to give you these numbers first, so it gives you some time to have a conversation and make that decision about whether or not you want to incorporate the lights that have already been converted and whether or not you want to incorporate smart controls. We can have more conversations on the smart controls. We have a whole smart control division, and if you want to take a deeper dive into the technology and some of the other benefits, whenever you'd like, we can organize that call.
Sure. Yes.
I think, first of all, thank you, because I think this is just what the board wanted to see, and I think you probably did it with the prior administration, but I hadn't seen it laid out this way, so I appreciate this. My only concern really with the financing was I thought we had kind of come to an agreement or truce where we were going to start this in March of maybe next year when when we have ownership of the fixtures and whatnot. If that happens sooner, then God bless us, it happens sooner. But we got a bill saying your first payment's due in March, And I can't see spending taxpayer dollars on a lease to lease something that we don't own yet.
What they have done, and the reason that they needed some numbers in order to do this, because that initial lease agreement was coming to payment.
Sure.
They got you don't have to make any payments until a year from.
Okay, all right. As long as we're sure of that.
Do we have that in writing anywhere? I mean, that's the part.
I'll make sure that that Renee from Municipal Lease Consultants
Yes. I would
confirms
appreciate that.
all of that in writing. She's told me that on the phone, and that was always.
Right, can we get that sent to the village clerk, the board, and the attorney?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Richard.
So no payments for a year. That was
Okay.
those were the conversations that we had with
Yeah, right.
Ralph.
So when we got
Right,
together, we were a little bit
but that has not been
surprised.
the action, so that's sort
You need it
of.
right. Of course, you need it right. Of
Yeah.
course,
I'll get it right.
you will
Okay,
have it in
wonderful.
writing.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, they wouldn't want to do it anyway because they don't have any collateral for the lease. So, I mean, it makes sense that we all work together.
Yeah.
But thank you again.
Sure. Any other questions?
So when do you expect to have the final audit and the amount? Because I'm really curious about the amount of lights that work. Biggest part of this puzzle that I have is that we have about 25% lights that we're now talking about scrapping, for lack of a better term. So because it makes no sense to have one system smart, one system not smart, one system incompatible. So we're now picking up where what we had already had converted and done, we would have to redo in a sense. And we don't know whether we're losing poles, whether we're gaining poles. Is my question to this. I don't know whether anybody else has that question, but
That's the difference between option 1 and option 2.
But it's also the option of that we now have to, like, we had converted over 25% of our lights in this village
89, right?
to LED.
Right, 89 of them.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're gonna now have to do those 89 again, especially if we go with the smart option.
Correct.
We would have no option but to redo those 89 all over again,
Right, exactly.
and basically just lose that 20%. I mean, am I correct, or is there a way
That's my question.
to adapt the smart technology to the existing LEDs that we have? I guess that's where.
I guess that would be the photo.
So there are a couple of issues.
Because you just said it's like if you do it now, you might as well do them all. Versus,
So,
and does this take into account the ones that were done already, or would that be in addition to and above and beyond?
Well, that's the difference between option 1 and option 2.
that's the difference between option 1 and option 2. Option 1. Option 1 is to not replace the existing LED fixtures.
Okay.
Option 2 is to replace them.
Right.
Both options have a smart control option. Right? Whether you go with option 1 or option 2.
But we're still paying for the rental of the lamp pad under option 1.
You're still paying for
So in other words, O&R replaced the bulbs, but we didn't purchase the
Exactly.
lamp heads from them. So
Exactly.
we wouldn't realize the savings from the purchase of the lamp heads under the 1 option, but we'd be perhaps being a bit redundant on replacing the bulbs. Is that kind of encapsulating it?
Well, so regardless of whether or not you want us to replace all of the fixtures, when you do the acquisition from O&R, you're going to be acquiring all of the poles.
Okay.
Well, not really poles. The
I
mast,
see.
The
And
arms,
so-
the arms,
mast-
the arms
Okay,
out to the
got
fixtures.
it.
You're going to take ownership of all of the
Okay.
infrastructure.
Okay.
Then the only question is, do we replace the fixtures that O&R has already converted, or do we not?
Right.
Right?
And
To
is
your
there-
to your question there on the control side, we'll have to, because we haven't been up to the pole yet, right? We'll have to look. It's called the NEMA socket. It's a technical term, but we'll have to see if O&R put in a NEMA socket that would allow the overlay of a smart control rather than your existing photocell. You're still going to have to pay for a trip up to the pole, whether we're taking the light down or just putting in the smart control and taking off the photocell.
And you were talking about 5G technology. So again, you're saying that would work on your equipment. Would that work on their equipment, or we'd still have to wait and hear whether or not it would work on the previous equipment that was put up? I mean, again, you're talking about something down the road if we were to decide to go and do it and it would help the village with money. Would that be able to be applied to both, or would it only be able to be applied to one? And could that be a hindrance then in the future to a 5G system for the village and for the public?
So again, that will hinge on, and again, we don't know because we have to actually go up the pole and see what sort of socket.
So we're still a little bit early.
They've used, but in any case, from a lighting perspective, when you take a look at the numbers, right? When you take a look at the ROI on this project and the 20-year savings, the difference really becomes minimal between replacing those existing fixtures or not. Looked at from an overall project perspective, right? The ROI is it's 0.8 years difference. It's several months difference. This is a project you're going to do hopefully once every 20 years. You want the lighting to be right.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
So we're going to do an industry-leading photometric design, and the outcome is going to be you're going to have the appropriate lighting everywhere in this municipality, and to have that except for 1/6 of the municipality, because I can assure you that O&R did not do a unique street-by-street photometric design when they replaced your lights. So you'll have 5/6 of the community with beautiful, appropriately designed lighting, and then 1/6 of the community with haphazard LED lighting. You can do it, but again, we've had many other communities that were in exactly the same situation as you. Each and every one of them opted to include the previously converted lights. I'll do whatever I'll do whatever you direct me to do. But if I was living here, and I'd want a uniform lighted lit community.
Does anybody else on the board have any more questions? No, but I'm glad you were here to answer a whole bunch of questions, clear up a couple.
No, my biggest issue, my biggest question was the maintenance. Was the maintenance, because if I recall, the first time we heard, that you came before the board a year ago or more. That was my question. But it didn't. It just kind of got run over. But it's here now.
A lot has happened in the last year or two, because it became very, very clear to us that all of our clients, because they were previously being served by the utilities, all of them really needed a comprehensive maintenance program. So we've spent a lot of time and energy on that. The numbers that we've worked into your financials are conservative. Your maintenance costs will be less than what we put here.
Right now, you've got an annual maintenance cost of $96.
Right.
9360.
That's a conservative number. Given the data that we have.
That's a conservative number?
Yeah, right. Your maintenance costs are likely going to be below that. Based on our data, we have 200,000 fixtures that we've converted for 300 municipalities. So we've got a lot of hard data to base these numbers on in terms of fixture failure.
My question would be in the maintenance. So a light goes out, your team comes out, takes care of it, right? A car hits the pole goes down.
Okay. So,
What happens then?
we went over this once before, but I'll go over it again. With regard to the actual pole,
Mhm.
what municipalities do, is you're going to have to, cover that with insurance.
Get a rider on our
Yeah,
insurance.
Get a rider on
Right.
insurance,
So
and nobody,
that's
yeah.
the cost. Right. Okay.
And the line.
So who owns the pole? Do we own the pole?
No.
So
Owen-
Owen-
It'll be O&R, Verizon, or.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Optical.
the insurance rider that we're discussing, what that's going to cover
Mhm.
will be the labor, and materials to replace the fixture and possibly the mast arm in the event of a act of God or somebody hits the
Sure.
pole.
Mhm.
Okay.
And just a quick question on the maintenance, for the fixed cost. So there's no like sort of, per event sort of option, I suppose?
Yes. You'll have two options when it comes to maintenance.
Okay,
This is the conservative number, which is the fixed cost. Most of our clients go with the
variable.
The variable. Why? Because, the
customers
probability
and-
of failures
Right.
is so low, that it's going to cost you less.
Okay.
You'll have both options. Our advice to you, if you want to spend less money, go with the variable.
Okay.
It's completely open book,
Mhm. Per call,
per
per
call.
service call kind of thing,
It'll all
okay.
be stipulated,
Mhm.
but you'll have both options.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'm good.
Daddy, you good?
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You're very
Thank you
welcome.
very
Thank
much.
you for your time.
Thank you.
I'll get that in writing from Municipal Lease Consultants.
Please, thank you, do sleep better at night.
Thank you.
Two. Number 10 died today. You already know what they're going to be putting on. So it's just a question of will this equipment fit on this mast? Right, too, that makes sense. Right?
Right, I mean, so I think this answered a lot of questions as far as where and how. And I think the biggest question was the payment. As long as we get that assurance.
This $74,000 invoice, just because there's really, these are the things that drive you absolutely insane when they don't put anything on here. The recount that I saw, first of all, thank you for the lease agreement, it's very helpful, but there's no payment schedule. Is this annual? Is that an annual one?
No, I think the price is. The monthly?
It can't be. It's going to be an annual amount.
It's not a baby step thing.
Because of the amount of money.
Spending over $1 million like in the first.
In the first year.
Yeah.
In the first year.
Yeah. I'll confirm that on all the,
I read the thing twice, I didn't see it. There's no payment schedule in here either. It refers to a payment schedule, it also refers to attachment A, which is the lease schedule, of the equipment, but how could they have that if they don't have the audit done? These are the questions I
Right,
wrote.
right. I'll
Looking,
confirm that. If she sends me an email, I'll confirm that,
looking at the preliminary audit, the numbers that they gave. Right, is that what am I gonna? Yeah, that's this thing, right? The question is the 5 lights, the 5 on Campbell Road that that they are the lights in the town. Do we pay for those now, or does the town, do they belong to us, or do they belong to the town?
The town actually,
Because that's a town farm.
from what the understanding is, the town actually owns those 5.
Yeah.
So we actually had, it's a -2 as far as extra lights.
Yeah, so that was my question, do the lights belong to
Right.
Park of the town,
Right.
the village of the town, so I thought that they.
And then the real question is, you know, so the question that I was trying to get at was, when we get the audit back, like he was saying about having everybody's street illuminated correctly,
Yeah,
are we gonna need more you know, I still would like to know the question of, do we need more poles, do we need,
do
you know, in
people
other
tell us,
words,
'cause if they could-
there's people, like, we okayed a light to go up the other day, well, we actually postponed the light to go up the other day.
we postponed the lights
Right.
until we figured this out.
But we, you know, but I'm sure they're not the only ones that would like another light.
But that's the point of this thing that they're doing with the
Right.
audio electric, whatever, is that that's what they're going to try to do.
Well, they're
is that
gonna
figure it out.
raise wattage and lower wattage, but that still might be where,
then it will be up to them.
like right now, there might be a street that should have 3 lights but only has 2 lights.
I agree. And I think that's what they're supposed to deal with when
Right.
they do that photoelectric, whatever thing that they're doing.
Right.
That's supposed to be.
Right, I'm just curious
They'll be able
how
to do
that'll
that.
affect the numbers, but I guess probably not too much, or
I
we'll
agree.
have to see.
Probably
See what it is. So, I mean, my only question to this board, and we've sort of been back and forth on this for a long time, on the lighting, you know, some of us were newer to it and trying to see, you know, get these questions answered all along. So, I mean, you know, I'd just like to go, Kevin, do you feel that we should, do the ownership of the lights and go forward with municipal? Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
That was my original thought when they first came in. It got a little muddied. It got a little cloudy. I was glad he came in and cleared up a couple things. I do. I think in the long haul, it's definitely the right thing to do.
Nick, how do you feel, you came up?
My question is environmental. It's not needed.
But the question is going.
So that
Right.
doesn't matter.
Right, but the question is whether or not we stay with Orange and Rockland, or whether we continue on with leasing. So, I mean, how would you answer? Which way, you know, as a board member, you'd like to see the board go in this matter?
How about if we just wait to see if this, how the payment goes, if it's up, then we turn back to your question.
Well, the payment's virtually answered. I mean, he gave us the payment sheet right here. It's gonna change a little bit, but it's not
Yeah,
changing much.
that's what I'm
So
saying.
that's not, yeah, that's really not, you know, the question is do we scrap the 25%, go with this, and then, you know, the next question would be, you know, our feelings on the 5G, but I just want, you know, no sense talking about 5G and smart and everything else
Yeah.
before we decide, you know, is this the way to go? So,
Yeah, I
um,
think it's good way to go.
okay. Peter?
Okay, so this is where the rubber meets the road. I do believe the question that I had was on the maintenance, because that was never really discussed. And that's where, you know, having gone through lease agreements ad nauseum at work, you know, that's on the maintenance side is where they make up whatever their margins are. So if it's going to be a fixed or a variable one, they kind of answered that question as it is right now. The only question that I have is goes back to a point that I think Brian made way back when this first came up about O&R itself. Just keep it as it is, in which way, knowing that they'll fix everything and that they'll change everything, and what that cost to us was going to be. Now, the only thing I can say is that right now, I haven't seen any numbers from them whatsoever.
I think we've been going down that road for the last 6 years maybe, change them. We had an opportunity this year, I brought to the table, and I gave you a copy of O&R of 221 to be changed over at $210 a light, to be LEDs like we've been doing, because they sent the thing out back in.
But if that was only the light, or was that the full masthead?
That's the LED for the,
That would be
no LED like we have now.
That would be just the bulb.
what they're replacing,
Well,
yes.
All right, that's just the
Yeah.
bulb, but it
Yeah.
would be nothing else. And
That would
then
be-
going to the other point, would that be cost effective for us going forward and everything else like that? So that's No, actually, you're right, I do remember that conversation.
Right, that's what I say, we've been sort of
They
bantering this
maintain
around and
maintenance.
back and forth, but they maintain it and, you know.
Maintain maintenance, no insurance riders, no, and,
No million dollar cost to the village.
and they do have,
You know, a cost to the village, but not, you know.
they do
not-
have, they do
Yeah,
have
so I'm still on the
sockets.
fence on this one.
I
I have to be honest with
I
you.
think if I'm correctly, to change probably the whole 600 would probably run the village less than 300,000.
But the question is that are
A
they
lot
just throwing up light bulbs? Do you know what I mean?
No.
That's
Actually,
what
they changed
I would
on
say
the
the first thing we
Facebook.
should do, what he brought up, is make sure that those lights we can do, what he said we may not be able to do, but they put in those, cells in the pole.
That's right, I agree with that.
That's something you should do immediately,
Right.
because if it's in those, it's only 15%, not 20, May, I'm sorry, of the lights of the 600. We went through with him, and I spoke to him about that. That would be done first to see what's there, so you know you have. And I would think that he should have really did that, so he'd give us the option, because the option of change those lights is about $45,000. That's why he put it into the leasing, the $45,000, because I had said, let's get the higher price, so we can always go lower with a thing. And you have to remember, when you did this in the beginning, so you understand, we have a bonding company that could a lot cheaper, which we didn't do, and we're paying 3.8% on the interest, which I have it's a little high. But that's been locked in before, so you can't get out of that.
Okay, so the question, that's the only thing that I would want to revisit was what O&Rs, just so that I can get those numbers back into my head.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. It looks like they're saying the average cost for fixture right now with O&R is 204, and it would go down to 39 if we bought the mastheads. So
Yeah, but
it's all math. You just have to
Yeah, it's all math,
amortize it
and
out
that's-
over
That's
whatever
just-
period of
that's-
time, and
That's fine with numbers.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
you know, I mean,
because we know it's not 39 now.
Yeah.
Yeah. We know it's 39.
you know,
But-
I'd sooner buy a bucket truck for
Yes.
20 grand, and you know,
Right.
avoid
but-
$9,000 a year
but-
in maintenance costs.
You know what, but you need a guy to go up in that bucket truck who's touching electricity, that's,
Yeah,
You
and
know
then
what?
the other, and then the other elephant in the room in this whole conversation is the lease agreement.
Yes.
Well, and
You know.
here's, so
So,
I just marked up your copy, I hope you don't mind, but they talk about rental payments as specified in the payment schedule attached to each lease schedule. I'm like, we need that. And they also say that, you know, they can't make us pay money that we haven't legally appropriated in available revenues and all that kind of stuff.
no, and I don't disagree with any of that, because I read
Yeah,
that, that's on my notes. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I understand all
Yeah.
that, but at the end of the day, right now, unless somebody is gonna sit there and say that we can totally get out of this agreement, we're pretty much,
I think
we have
well,
we just have to weigh that.
That was my
That's
thing,
all.
was whether or not that's whether we wanted to talk further and explore that. But there's only a reason to do that if that's what the majority of the
Right.
board.
so. If you don't want to buy them,
If you don't wanna do it, then that's what, you know, like we have two that said that they were in favor, one
I'm still on the fence
One
until I get
not on the fence, so it's like, you know, let me just do the math, so let me say that there's two not on the fence, and that would make you the final vote.
not the position I wanna be in, thank you very much.
We're making an assumption here. We're making an assumption.
No, I don't know.
But I'm just saying,
No, but yes. I wouldn't.
we have bantered this about.
Yeah, I think I've been vocal. I don't know.
I don't know where you stand.
Nothing's
obvious.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
But I'm not gonna take anything for granted, he could have gone back, just
Right.
like I'm here, just like I'm hearing now, I'm on the fence.
I'm not gonna cover everybody said, I'm not gonna
yeah.
like something and
Correct.
think could have
Exactly.
changed.
That's why I
see
said.
those numbers
Yeah,
again.
that's why I
what
said.
do. That's
Yeah,
all I
I
just
think
That's
that-
what I was saying too, I
I
just
think
wanna,
that we all agree, or at least
See
my
the
reading of
final-
the contract is that we've paid to get the investment grade audit, and we're kind of, you know, so we
Kinda
might as
stuck
well,
with that.
we're stuck with that, we might as well get
The full
the
thing.
whole
Yeah.
thing. And then you could ask more questions and we can, you know, run more numbers and crunch it a little bit. But I think this clears up some of the confusion.
And now, is it possible to get somebody from O&R in here?
Let me be clear, so.
Well, I mean, and we have had, O&R has come in and has spoken. But again, you know, we haven't had, you know, not in front of the board, it wasn't a matter
Right,
during the
okay.
day. You know, maybe we have 2 or 3 like we did a couple of the other meetings, that if O&R, were to come in.
Well, but however we can figure it out,
Yeah.
we'll do what needs to be done. So, And
Right.
in that particular case, I'm just gonna say the sooner the better.
Well,
Before my schedule changes.
let me
back.
just say something clearly. You have the former mayor and the treasurer, court treasurer, signing documents going forward with this leasing. So, as I said back in, I'm not gonna lie, September, October, which I hate to say on this board, saying as just a clerk, you think before you go forward on anything, and everybody understood that. You need to straighten that out with the real terms before we go into getting the leasing. And I think we have a problem. Maybe I'm wrong. The attorney could answer that. We could always challenge it in court. But I think right now, if I'm going to guess, you're stuck with that leasing. And that's
I
my
don't
problem.
disagree, I don't disagree with
You
what
know,
you're
I think,
saying.
I'm sorry, may I interrupt?
Sure.
I think we're gonna have a discussion about, like, whether or not we think we're bound to
Oh.
this agreement or anything
You're
like
right,
that.
you're right,
I think
you're
we
right,
should
right.
probably, put that into executive session so we can
Agreed.
have
Okay,
a discussion in there.
you're right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
So,
Well, I'll find out from Owen. I'll get you some numbers.
Okay.
Why should that be an executive session, not a public?
Well,
Because
again,
if I'm gonna sit here and give the board advice on whether or not we can challenge a contract, I wouldn't want the entity whose contract we're challenging know what my legal strategy might be.
right, the question was whether or not, now that we've been presented part of the puzzle, that we haven't gotten the
Yeah.
full puzzle, but whether or not this was,
Was there a cost to that proposal?
the proposal was, okay, so there was a resolution that, there was a village resolution that was done by the previous administration that entered into agreements, and this was part of that cost. And yes, there is a cost, and that was all set in motion prior to this administration coming on board. And so far we are following.
How much was that cost?
That we had in the budget. I'd have to go back and double check. And just so I don't start to get into it, this was not an open comment meeting tonight. So does anybody else have any other questions about this or what, until I guess we get further clarification?
No?
Okay.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ryan, I'm sorry, I did not give you a chance to speak. Did you want to?
No,
Okay.
I
You
think
said-
I've been pretty
Okay.
clear, and I think.
No, I just didn't want to,
Kind of
I'm
firm
sorry, I
level.
just didn't
No,
want to.
no, absolutely not.
I just did not want to
Not a problem.
cut you off.
Not a problem.
I see Adriana is here. Thank you for coming tonight. I'm gonna move, let's move that up, move the floating zone up, so that Adriana can speak.
I have some documents for your review.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Adriana. Most of you have met me. This is my coworker Valerie. She will be taking over as Stu attempts to retire.
Never
Still in progress, but we're trying. So, what you have before you today, we're here again to discuss the Airmont Downtown District Floating Zone, which is that Economic Development District. I just wanted to provide you all with a general overview of what has happened to date. So I kind of turned it into a timeline that shows what's happened already and what our next steps are. So this process started as far back as June 2018 when the comp plan was adopted. In your packets, you'll see a little excerpt from the comp plan, two maps which show vacant and underutilized sites. That's the one with the big red lines on it. And so those were identified in the comprehensive plans as sites, particularly the underutilized ones that needed a little bit of revitalization and redevelopment. And you'll see our recommendations. It's just one page that summarizes the recommendations of the comprehensive plan. And then a little schematic as well, figure 9, existing conditions in Airmont Center. That just shows kind of the existing informal, pedestrian movements and connections that already exist in the area. So we did a lot of work looking at that area through the comprehensive planning process. We adopted some zoning that you all should be familiar with. Some zoning to actually work a little better in the NS district, talking about drive-throughs and outdoor display of products and outdoor seating for restaurants, things to make that a little more flexible. We worked on the draft zoning for quite a while. We met with stakeholders. There was actually a public hearing held on February 19th that, most people supported the idea. And then the next step, once everybody kind of was on the same page with the zoning itself, was to draft a generic environmental impact statement scope, which is a New York State requirement that we look at the environmental impacts of the new development on site. And the scope is really just an outline that lays out for the public and for the lead agency, which would be the village board, what exactly will be studied and how it will be studied. The GEIS is generic, so it doesn't have to be as specific as an actual, a site-specific EIS would be. And it establishes thresholds, so any future development, if it did go above those thresholds, they would have to supplement their research and reporting once the zoning district lands and they want to submit for site plan approval. So we kind of went through all of that. We drafted the GEIS scope. We came before the board June 17th, 2019, and the village board actually declared lead agency. So that means that the village board is responsible for the floating zone and its environmental impacts or potential environmental impacts. So then we revised the scoping document because people commented on it. We met with the new village board at a workshop to kind of explain get everyone on the same page. So you all were at that September 3rd meeting. Then in January, we met with the new committee to discuss in a little more detail why we are where we are. Then we met with the mayor and had a similar discussion and got the go-ahead to come before you all today and get this ball rolling if that's the intent of the village board. So we haven't made any changes to the zoning text. It's essentially the same thing you saw on September 3rd. But we did want to go over the next steps. So step 1 and step 2 are essentially interchangeable, but they're both pretty important. We need to make a seeker determination and provide a notice of intent to all involved agencies. So we need to send out the zoning to Rockland County Planning and the Village of Chestnut Ridge, which are your adjacent municipalities, and see if they have any comments or if they want to be involved in the seeker process. We also need to determine the responsibilities for the GEIS because it is a big involved report that we will have to conduct. And I will let Valerie discuss a little bit more about that in a little more detail. So some things that we would like to discuss in a couple minutes are the responsibilities for sections. Previously we had talked about splitting up having N&P, who is based out of Long Island and has been doing traffic reviews for the planning board for a while. They may be able to do the traffic report. Brooker may want to take on, as your village engineer, some of the more engineering and technical things, and then obviously NP&D would be responsible for a good portion of the reporting and of the analysis. But of course, that is all up to the village board to discuss and decide. The next step after making a determination is to introduce the draft scope. We have edited the scope, and that is in your packet now.
And, you know, I'll talk about that in a
Yeah,
minute, 'cause
we'll
I do
talk
wanna
about
walk
that.
you through
We
each
will
one
walk
of
through
those
it.
options.
Yeah. Once that's adopted, and there's a hearing process, there's a comment process, so it doesn't have to be a hearing, but you do have to open the scope to public comment. So you have to post the scope on the village website or somewhere that's visible and allow people to submit comments. Then you or your consultants will respond to those comments, incorporate them if needed, if decided it's appropriate into the draft scope, and then you adopt the scope. Then you complete the GEIS. That doesn't really have much of a time frame, but there are time frames after that. So once we submit the GEIS gets submitted to the village board, we have 45 days to determine whether or not it's complete. And then a public review and comment on the draft GEIS could take around 30 days. Submit the final to the lead agency and then file a notice of completion. So all of that is that's the GEIS process. So we'd like to kick that off if the village board is interested in continuing with this floating zone as it's been written at this point. So I'll kick it off to Valerie to go over the draft scope, which is the last item in your packet.
So we updated the draft scope specifically based upon feedback that we received throughout the process, as well as some recent meetings that we've also had with the village board. We really are focusing this particular scope on 5 key environmental areas. The first is land use, zoning, and plans. That piece of the scope is really going to bolster your argument as to why you're creating this floating zone, what was the background behind it, about the comprehensive plan, and then also justification as to why this floating zone is being identified for particular locations within the village. The second big piece is water resources. This includes groundwater, surface water, and wetlands. And as you know, clearly the location of the potential floating zone, there's not so many wetlands per se, but there are wetlands around in the surrounding, some of the surrounding parcels. And I also think groundwater and surface water are important because there's clearly various potential flooding elements and stormwater elements that need to be worked in. Then also the visual impacts and community character. I think that was one thing that's always of concern, is that since you're now going to be introducing new uses, different massing that was there originally, what is that going to do with impacting the surrounding parcels and also some of the surrounding neighborhoods. Then the other major piece is community services and facilities, because again, you're introducing new uses like potentially residential in some of these in this floating zone. You're going to want to take a look at how it impacts your police, your fire, your schools, taxes, those types of community services that the village provides. And then finally, traffic and transportation and parking. That's clearly a big one. And this one would very much focus on looking at certain key intersections, which right now we've identified Route 59 and North and South Airmont Road, Route 59 and North DeBaun Avenue, Route 59 and South DeBaun Avenue, and the intersection of Route 59 and Cherry Lane.
That's pavement.
Yes, sorry, thank you. So we're also open to any other additional intersections of concern that this village board might have. One of the things that we're going to do in this draft environmental impact statement is, while the floating zone, because a floating zone is going to be applied, can only be applied to parcels of 8 acres or more, and they have to meet certain conditions, so not every parcel within the floating zone are going to have to, you automatically, even if an application comes before you, that you don't have to automatically apply the floating zone. It has to meet certain criteria, you have to feel comfortable with it, and then it's your discretion as the village board to decide whether it's going to be applied or not. There are 2 particular parcels, I think, of interest that were identified in the comprehensive plan as being underutilized and potential for this particular floating zone. And those 2 parcels are going to be studied in more detail in the generic environmental impact statement, because those will be ones as sort of like a test case scenario as to what would the impacts be if this floating zone were applied to those 2 particular parcels.
And is that the former Grand Union and the property owned across the street?
No. Right now.
That's this area here.
So it's actually the former Grand Union and the Walmart property.
Oh, the
So the
Walmart.
two parcels that are identified as underutilized with that hatch mark
Are
on
the
this
two
map,
parcels that we're
this
gonna-
guy and this guy.
Got it.
Because we only wanted it to, or the village only wanted it to apply to village center zoning district.
Right, and the parcel across the street is not within the village center zoning district.
Okay.
One of the other things I wanted to draw your attention to is alternatives. So technically, as part of any environmental impact statement, you have to take a look at a no action alternative, which basically identifies what would the scenario be if the status remains unchanged. We also would potentially propose looking at another alternative would be development under existing zoning. So you can compare the two between the floating zone, post-floating zone, and what would be under existing zoning. And then the third development alternative we're proposing is under the floating zone, development under the floating zone, but an increase in allowable height to 6 stories and an increase in floor to area ratio. This is something that has been based upon certain feedback we received through the public process so far, that might be an alternative that the board might want to consider also taking a look at in this particular EIS. So we are here to answer any questions or have any discussion you'd like to have on the scope or some of the environmental concerns that you would like us to make sure that we cover as part of this. We can always work it back into the scope and provide you a revised draft.
Yeah, I'm gonna, Amy, you have a question?
I just wanted to ask a question, make a comment. It looks like from the actions completed to date that you had a meeting with the stakeholders back in November 2018.
Yeah.
And I know that since that time, at least representatives from the former Grand Union and Mr. Jenislaw, who I understand is not part of the floating zone now but would like to be, have come forward with comments and concerns. Do you think now that we're in 2020 that before we kick this off that another meeting with the stakeholders might be worthwhile? Because my only concern, and I base this on my experience in Clarkstown, is that that builders are only going to build what makes sense for them to build, right? So, the Nanuet Mall sat fallow like the surface of the moon for like 12, 15 years because Simon Corporation had enough money to let it sit there fallow for 15 years. And then finally when they came in and we said, what is it that you want? We sat down and we kind of, came up with something that we thought they might be able to live with, because to go through this process and come up with something that, some of the highlighted parcels aren't willing to invest in is, in my mind, kind of like a little bit of a waste of time. So, I'm sorry.
No.
So I'm just wondering, would it be prudent to maybe have one more meeting with the stakeholders, invite them before we kick off the formal scoping process?
We can do that, and that is fine if you would like to do it that way. I mean, you can do one of two things. We can have,
or you can get it in the context of the scoping.
Right, you can get it in the context of, so either one, if you prefer to have like another stakeholder meeting and then go right into the scoping, we can do that as well. I mean, there has been a definite time lapse, so, and that's part of like what we really want to, one of the things we wanted to express tonight is like, once we get this going, we really want to help you keep this with forward momentum and actually get this accomplished.
I'm in the middle of it, EIS up in Stony Point, and it's like, and Max is working on it, so it's like, once you get it going, you got to keep it going. But in that case, there was already, an applicant who was interested in pursuing what was being proposed. So. I'm not suggesting like a long period of time. I'm talking like in the next, week or two, and then maybe coming back at the next meeting and kicking it off. But that, of course, is not my decision at all. It's the board's decision. It's just my comment.
So I'm gonna, I was gonna say, I'm gonna say it makes total sense to me that, as you're saying, and as we met and spoke about the underutilized property, and to tell a land use, tell a person build a supermarket when supermarkets are not necessarily opening, doesn't make sense.
Right.
So it'd be nice to hear what the stakeholders have to say before we go, because definitely I can tell you, being a person who works in a brick and mortar store, I can tell you it's not the same as what it was before.
Certainly. I mean, the alternative, the third alternative that is proposed does take into consideration the most recent comments that we've received.
Okay.
But we're happy
But
to,
maybe we get a
right,
we
little-
are happy to.
Just
yeah.
make sure we have the
If
most.
we want-
absolutely.
Before going. So yeah, I think that would be the way to go. If everybody's in agreement on that.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear from them.
Yeah.
So how would you like us to structure that session?
Well, we have a committee. Maybe we could just have another meeting with the floating zone committee and invite them in once.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
Okay.
And then the
you know,
committee
if they
could
wanna
report
come,
to
they
the,
come and-
to the board.
And then the committee could report to them.
Yeah, you could do that.
So we'll coordinate with the committee.
When's the March meeting? March 2nd?
Yes.
Sounds great.
So, do you think we can put something together within the next 2 weeks?
Well, yes, absolutely, we can. I think it's really just coordinating, making sure the stakeholders are able to come, right? And then,
I know
and
Mr.
the
Kennesaw
committee.
couldn't be here tonight because he's away.
Right.
Right.
Well, he's also,
Well,
you know, but yeah, I was gonna say now,
Well, right.
am I correct that he's not in the floating
He's
zone?
definitely
No.
not in the
That's
floating
correct.
zone.
But I mean, so I don't know whether or
I
not,
think
you
the
know,
village board
If we're-
needs to
if we're
kind
staying
of,
in the scope of the,
I would think they'd be two separate issues.
I think so.
right,
Right.
I think that, you know, I believe we, you know, whether we use the same committee and go with having a meeting with him for what he is proposing on, not in the floating zone, is a great opportunity to talk to him the same way.
Right.
So we can find out what the village needs to do, but that it's two separate, that we maintain that it's two separate entities, that we both want to, you know, we want to go forward on both. We want to work with both, property owners and develop, you know, what we can develop and what. But they're not, but as has been stated, they're not the same.
So why don't I suggest, so we can focus on the stakeholders that are involved in the VC district. So that would be part of the floating zone.
Right.
And then we will set up something separately with the, any gentleman dealing with the
That
NS
would
district.
be
Right.
great.
I think that makes more
Okay.
sense that.
Better for both of them.
Right.
More streamlined for us to be able to answer questions on just dealing with one
Right.
issue or
Yes.
one entity.
Yes.
Right, and they are two separate zoning districts, you know, so that
Does make
it
sense.
gives you the flexibility
And
to
we
deal
want
with each
our
one.
planners to weigh in on what might be able to
Exactly.
be done in the NS zone over there, but, you
Yeah.
know, it's not, so far proposed as part of the floating zone, because
Right.
it seems to meet the
Right.
requirements.
Okay, so at this point, I can just say that my schedule is fairly flexible for the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
That I can
Okay.
tell you. Both during the day or in the evening.
Okay.
That works for me either way. I'm not gonna speak for anybody else, Kevin.
The other person in the committee.
Well, and Dan too.
Yes, right, Dan.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the afternoon of the 25th would be really good, but, you know, maybe it'd be really good.
25th, is that like
That's a
Friday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Who
You know
schedules
what?
meetings
That's
on
a-
Friday?
I'm gonna sit there and tell you,
Some
I
people
believe I
do.
have an appointment up in Poughkeepsie, so it would have to be in the afternoon on the 25th.
That's what I said.
I have an appointment in Poughkeepsie on the 26th. So,
So
you know.
just whatever you can come up with.
All right, so well, why don't
Sounds
we
like
aim
the
for the
25th.
25th?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be,
afternoon.
the later the better.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. So then we will get back to you guys on the, I guess, the scope. And we'll try to be on the March 2nd agenda then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd
Yeah.
be cool.
So then our plan is, after we have the steering committee meeting, we'll make any other
What
final
time on
adjustments.
the 25th are you planning these meetings?
You don't know yet.
Don't know.
Well, right.
That's not a good answer.
Well, I mean, I think it really
That's
sounds like
in the afternoon.
Okay. How about I say 3 o'clock?
You could say 3 o'clock, but
Okay.
it could
No,
be
we're
4:30.
actually shooting for the
Okay, as
afternoon.
soon as you can give me that, you can shoot me an address of the time.
Well, I can tell you right now.
Yes. Feel free to shoot, Ralph.
It would have to
That's
be
what he said.
before 3 to 4. I have to be on the road to another meeting at 4:30.
Right, so 3 o'clock's fine.
I was right from the beginning, 3 p.m.
There you go.
One
Great.
half hour.
Yeah.
When you say it's to be on the
Great.
road
Yeah,
at
that works.
4:30.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes,
see him
okay,
tomorrow.
great.
Okay.
Time.
I have doctor's appointment.
I'll notify Dan tomorrow.
Good.
Okay,
So it's next Tuesday. Who's gonna reach out to the stakeholders?
yes, that was the next question.
I'll reach out.
Okay.
Okay,
Reach out.
okay.
I'll speak to Dan
All right.
and stakeholders, okay?
All right,
Sounds
excellent.
good.
All right, thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now.
Next up, so now we're going to the top, general code proposal. Amy had discussed it with us the last time. We got some more information and a quote for the services. And on the inside, there's two types of solutions. There's solution 1 and solution 2, two different estimates on it. Just to try to see whether, try to get a, we brought it up the last time, try to get a consensus from the board whether this is something that we should spend some money on, which I believe it is. Does anybody know the last time that it was done in the village? I guess is my
What, are we talking the code?
The code, yeah.
2018.
2018.
2018.
Oh, the whole
2018.
code?
The whole code was.
I am 98% positive that when we did the comprehensive plan, that part of that was to go through the whole code and take a look at stuff that made sense, didn't make sense, fix stuff that
The
was
consistency is
that,
throughout.
right,
And everything else is done.
and was broken, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And just going back and looking through my stuff, 2018.
It could be, and we had the gentleman in from General Code the other day, it could be that after 2018, for whatever reason, maybe, changes in who was responsible for doing it or whatever, but that some of our changes to the code didn't get sent to General Code and then weren't included in supplements and weren't included online, because when I look through it now, I've seen a few areas where, like, for example, residential places of assembly versus residential houses of worship, you have a couple of concepts there, and then there's some other local laws that I just know from my experience with other towns and villages that they're there, but they, there might be some subsequent case law that's come down that would require change to some of them. So what I can do is I'll talk to Dan, and then maybe he and I will take a look at it ourselves, and we'll get the updated stuff from General Code, and then I'll have the updated version online so I can go through and search terms.
Yep.
And if it looks like it wasn't really done, we can revisit it, and if it looks like it was, then no reason. And if it looks like there's just one or two provisions that I think are just out of whack with current case law, we can do those as one-offs.
Yep. Perfect.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
Copy that.
Easy?
Is this gonna be put on the March meeting or no? For the workshop?
For discussion, you can,
Yes.
sure, or March workshop, I think, for
Okay.
discussion is probably better, gives me a little time to do it. Create workshop.
Alright, so next is the New York State Department of Transportation traffic signal at the intersection of Route 59 and College Road. We were sent a letter, and how we as a board would like to respond, whether we would like to change. We have to respond by March of 2020. At the end. So it has to do with the way the lighting.
So this is where, my ignorance just is, because I just don't know. Whoever thought that I would ever have to learn about pushing buttons on
Which
a
normally
traffic
don't work
signal.
anyway.
Correct.
So this is what I understand, I believe I understand the issue. So now what they're saying, the DOT is saying, is that they can configure the light so that it's always going to be at a set time, for a set amount of time, that it's always gonna change, that they can walk across the street and everything else like that on its own.
On that day, yeah, or day.
On that day, you can do it every day.
Right,
According to
right.
this, they can do it every which way.
They can do whatever,
Still,
right,
it's still,
right.
Because it's all programmable.
Right,
yeah, it's in
right.
the, and it's in the loop.
Yeah,
It's
it's
in the
all,
loop.
it's all programmable.
Yeah.
Right.
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 The loop is there, so.
Okay, so then
I mean, my reading of it, I wouldn't want to do it automatically Monday through Friday, which is your typical work week, but Saturday when we have less
yeah, but
traffic.
when I sit there and I think about that corner in and of itself, that intersection, there's really, it's not like there's any residential impact there.
Very
All
well.
there is so
Very
as far
well.
as keeping it on,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a big deal if it had to be every day. The one thing that they don't say here is that, is there a cost associated with this? I'm assuming no, right? Okay.
Because it's,
Or they would have put it in
State
here.
road. Or any county road.
it's theirs. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
theirs. It would just be our resolution. That's all.
Right, so then, okay, so now you have to look forward with everything. If somebody who is observant cannot push the button at all, okay, what happens for somebody like, not, I'm just,
No,
somebody who can
seriously.
see, somebody
Yeah.
who can see, what happens? Does it just automatically turn?
It'll automatically turn, it'll cycle
Yeah,
on.
it cycles.
Well, the light,
It cycles
yeah.
automatically.
So-
yeah.
The loops in the road, there's loops in the road that would be timed differently. They'll
Just
time
like
loops.
if you go to the Airmont light
Yeah.
and you watch it, you can sit there and watch it go, okay, you're all going this way. And then, okay, now you're going to cross, you can cross. You can turn left, oh, now I'm going to get the green arrow, watch. Oh, green arrow, look at
I
that.
just want to make sure that it does it on its
I don't
own.
wanna say it.
That if it's
Yeah.
just me and I
You'll
don't
see
push a
the-
button,
Yeah.
it's gonna turn automatically.
It does automatically.
So
Yeah.
then, all right. So if it does it automatically, as it is,
Well,
Well,
it's not, I don't
then
think.
what-
I don't think it is.
It's not, it's automatically, but it's not set up to do it.
It's
not, it's set
right.
up to go manual, not total automatic.
Right, it's not,
It-
it's not
it
set
does
up,
automatic,
it's
but
not
not
set up
total
to, it's
automatic.
not set up to put on the walk cycle.
The loop isn't,
Yeah,
Is
that
it
seems to be what it
totally-
says, is that it's not, you
so
know.
if the walk cycle is automatic, that's what. So because anybody can show up at a pole at any time.
correct,
Right.
right. This way,
This way,
what would happen is, if, you know, traffic, regardless if someone shows up or not, there'll be a cycle to where cars, you know, the loop will pick up the cars and,
Yeah.
you know,
So
accordingly.
I mean, I'm just asking questions only because I want to know.
Symbolical, suggestions,
I have-
you know, that's what I was trying.
I had no issue with this whatsoever.
No, I'm just trying to help it, it's basically the plan.
The only question that I have is that when you start to, you know, I'm going to make an assumption that I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to assume because of her sight, that she's visually impaired, that she could be blind or going blind, cataracts, whatever, or is elderly. It could be anybody, right?
correct.
All right. So keeping that in mind, then what do we do about all the other intersections where people are going to be crossing?
I think that's,
What do we do with the corner of Airmont and 59? What do we do with the corner of Scoop Block and Cherry Lane?
I think it would be, I think it's gonna be per request, per
yeah.
the
When
problems,
it's
as the problems occur.
Okay, but this is only taking one. This
Correct.
is
Correct.
responding to one person's.
Correct. But this is also their road,
I understand.
you know.
Their road is everywhere.
Their road, their lives, their.
But they're asking for us to do it. Well,
They're
why
asking
can't we
for our
just be?
resolution.
Why can't we be proactive and in one
And
resolution say,
Say,
what about
this road,
fees?
this road, that road. Cause then we're gonna cost them money. Without them putting it up.
Yeah, but you
I'm with,
but you know what I'm
with,
saying,
no,
though, Bray.
no, 100% with you. Well, why not just do, we see
You
the
just do
problem,
it-
you see
just do all the
problems down the
roads.
road. You see, well, literally.
You know, but he's saying that, you know, and this is then, you know,
Well, so I know exactly what you're saying, and I agree 1,000%. But you know what? You asked me for $20. I'm going to give you $20. Okay? I know you want to build a house years from now, and you'd like 300, 400,000 to do so. But you asked me for $20, so I'm going to give you $20. That's how I see it.
I like your logic, by the way. I do like it. Let me throw a wrench in here. I spoke to them on this, okay? I was on the phone a couple of times, And I had also a concern on that corner, that's where I live, where the light going south and north, you have an arrow going, I keep forgetting this, going, I guess, south, going towards east to the bridge with an arrow. When you come out of my block, going west, going from north to south, you don't have an arrow. And I had said that to her, and what your point is, every situation, you need a separate resolution and separate thing. Because I had said, if you're going to do this, why don't you do this as your study with the light? Because it makes sense. Because you don't have it. She had thought I want to make it a turning lane because she says, Ralph, I looked on the thing, you can't make a turning lane. I says, no. If they make the cars go north and south, turning east and west at the same time, the same way on my block. If you go on my block on Remsen Avenue, they got a light turning right to the 14X. They're going to make it on that thing right now. Where it must go. So it's everything's separate. Kevin, I'm sorry. Peter. I'm sorry. So the point is, they want it separate. Now again, this is just being a study. What we're doing is supporting it. At the end of the day, we don't know if it's going to be 100% done or not. We're just going to try to see what the cost and all that. This is just ask the board if they're against it or not, and send a separate letter and a separate resolution once you're ready. And this will be for the March meeting. This is just a discussion. But I asked all these questions as well because I still believe, as you all said, Airmont Road, which is probably the worst intersection in the Rockland County, forget what anybody says, it should be done.
Well, this is where it says it goes, where is it here? It says, please note that the programming signal pedestrian on recall can have a significant impact on the traffic flow on Route 59, in part because the side road will get a green phase, even though the traffic may not be present, since the traffic signal has an audible pedestrian signal. So, it's like, okay, so it's going to, no, because it's going to screw up traffic up there, or it can. It has that possibility of screwing up traffic up there. That's the part that scares me about down on the Airmont Road.
And my question was to her, and she agreed with me 100%. Are you worried more about traffic flowing or safety of people's lives? And
Safety of people's lives, absolutely.
That's just what she said. You're really right about it. So I had a conversation. They were very nice, and like I said, this is just for discussion as we go forward. I mean, But again, we could address that as you're saying going forward. If they do this, maybe we want to do Airmont Road and start the ball rolling ourselves rather than. I don't have a problem. It's just that they brought this up.
We can, look, you want to do the resolution tonight for this?
No, I'd rather wait. I'd rather wait because I want to write a letter and a resolution so we can all listen. So I'm going to write the letter, so we're going to say, and then we'll do a resolution for the month. It doesn't. It has to be done by the end of the month.
Alright, do you have a resolution for 3-2?
I have a question. So, when you write that letter, can you include the traffic light by Dunkin' Donuts to cross the street
The one on
for
Airmont
the
Road
seniors
and
of Airmont
North
Road?
Devon.
Except by her.
Yeah, it's the North
Could
Devon.
I just say something, Medallia?
Yes.
The law, the way they're writing this up is they do, like as Kevin is saying, they only want one item at a time. We could do this, and then I could have another letter saying about that as well, to see if they could look into it as going forward, for the safety of the two senior housing on the right and left.
Because we know that, the DOT
Right, so
do
you're
it
gonna-
as the DOT.
There
So
is
this
a
is
light there,
right.
but it's quick.
It's horrible.
It just changes right away.
It's another horrible light.
Well, we could even say that, we have no problem with the proposed action, and we also ask that you would consider a similar action at that intersection too, and see
Sure.
what they say.
I agree.
I was going to say, do we want to keep, and since like
Yes, you give all night.
All
right, John, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Nobody's coming.
Okay,
Okay, Jeff,
good.
thanks.
Be safe.
well, I was going to say, with all the strange stuff that's been happening, I'd rather.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, we are.
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I put it on the,
Yes,
put it on.
So you're gonna put it on the March 1st meeting is for a resolution vote, right?
That's
right.
Yes.
Okay.
And then you're going to send.
Thank you.
Okay. And then you're going to look into sending a letter on the other one. Perfect.
Thank you, Ralph.
My pleasure.
All right. Next up, we have the contract for the rental of the community room. Wanted to have a discussion about changing some of the fees that we now collect on there. It's been As far as I know, unless somebody tells me otherwise, it's been 10 years since the inception, but we all know prices and costs have gone up in 10 years. Wasn't looking to go, my thoughts wasn't looking to go crazy, but the changes that was talking about making to it and putting a resolution in would be to the renter shall pay the security deposit of $100 instead of $75. Changed, and then if you go down this, that would be section A under the two fees and cancellation rights. On part B, proposing that we go from the $150 to $250 for a resident room rental fee and $300 for a non-resident room rental fee.
A non-resident gets $50 only over a resident? The taxpayer?
Well, right now it's $150 and $200. Yes, that's what it currently is.
No, but, you know, but if
How do you
we're
determine,
gonna
like,
change it.
if they're rent, I mean, so let's say you're gonna have a birthday party, you'd always just have the resident come in and
You
make
find a
the
resident, you
application,
find a
right?
resident.
Absolutely.
Right,
Right,
do
absolutely.
We
anyway,
used
but-
to do like, groups with at least 60% or more,
Right, but how are you gonna check 60%
Right,
or
exactly.
more?
You never
I'm
do.
not checking
Right.
licenses.
I mean, the question is we just raised the increase for the cleaning crew and different things, electric's going up, water's going up. It's more of a matter of just.
use of the kitchen?
Yeah, that's exactly, at some
That's
point,
a separate
well,
fee.
no, at some point, we're gonna have to replace refrigerators, stoves,
Right,
and
no,
everything.
I don't disagree.
So it was just a matter
I
of
agree.
putting it up for discussion and seeing what, McDahlia, what are your thoughts on?
Well, before you go any further,
Okay.
so what's the other, the one here that says village nonprofit room rental fee? What exactly does that mean?
Boy Scouts.
Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts,
But you are talking,
religious people, not religious people, but like say a school or something like that, they're having a play downstairs, they rent it. I mean, it's for anything that's basically tax exempt, I would say, basically that we set up for when we first did this in the beginning with Dennis K.
okay, the only thing that.
It's not meant for politicians or there's something else, politicians and religious functions. Functions.
You have
Those two
you can
things
have like
you can't
a
have.
caucus or a
Right.
religious
Right, so
function.
then that's not in here, it's not in the contract, right?
What?
It doesn't say that in this contract, does it?
No, it doesn't specify which it is, no. We were general at the time because we didn't want to have, we had problems from the beginning, so we were very careful when we wrote in there.
There were problems?
Yeah, I was in federal court, so I'm like that. I think the reason why I was talking to May about it because we're getting no use of it, and I think it should only be fair that it should be used properly. I checked a lot of places that are way higher, different areas all around, the legions and suffering. I mean, again, I'm not comparing it.
Good rock,
So I just feel
At
that
the end of the day,
because
it's still for the
Yeah.
part of it's for the residents, part of it's for non-residents, but I mean, for the residents, we're not looking to,
Okay,
looking.
Okay, so you're only coming, so
$250.
of course, when you're only getting a copy of the contract and it only says a line item that we're going, I had no idea what this was going to be
Well,
about.
that's what I said,
Like
that's
the
why
golf
it's a
thing,
discussion and.
So it's a discussion.
Spook rock.
So,
I mean, those numbers are, open for discussion or whatever, I just wanted to have a discussion on it.
I think it's 300.
all right, so then I have other questions
Okay.
outside of the scope of the money.
Where the
Okay.
housing is, Book Rock Housing.
We answered the first question I had, is this the current contract currently in use?
They have
Yeah,
a
I'm
convenience
assuming
center
yes,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any
Pretty nice.
insurance
Excuse me, can we have one person talk at a time?
Do we have any insurance requirements? Do we require any insurance? Or
something
any-
we talked about that a while ago, but we used to ask, like, I'll be honest with you, we had the Boy Scouts down there, we had the Little League down there upstairs, we asked them to get a rider from their organization back then. Apparently, I'm not gonna lie, in the last number of years, we never did any more of that. I mean, we could do that, we should really have some kind of
You just
whole
need to get a
harmless
COI.
thing for us.
That's all you need is a certificate of insurance.
Exactly.
Everything else is an.
Even if they put on their house,
individual.
if they haven't done that, listen, I just followed through what we had.
Or
we can do that.
harmless.
I would strongly advise
I have no
that you
problem with
have us named as an additional insured and have them sign a hold harmless no matter what you charge.
Absolutely.
Right, so that's why you have to look back at this contract and
we'll
see
look
if
at
it's
this
there.
contract, Amy, to look at
Okay.
contract.
Yep.
Well, so you get-
I agree.
I'm sorry.
No,
So, okay, so
Okay.
done.
Yeah,
So
this
then,
is what I was gonna say, I mean, it's good for us to look and revisit.
Yeah.
All right, so
so
then
we
I
do the 100 for the deposit, the 250 for the resident,
Well, I mean,
the
does
300 for.
anybody think that's too low, too high?
No, go, I'm just.
No, I actually think it's reasonable.
No,
I mean,
I follow the Kevin, I think
I know
it's
a
right.
couple of people that have rented the swim team. Did it a couple weeks ago.
We did it.
Right, exactly. We did it. And we're not even going to tell you how that came about. Oh,
Oh, I called the
Boy
police
Scouts
department, I
going
told
down
them,
there.
put my name down,
That
put
was
on stuff, and
lovely.
said, oh, okay. You know, I felt
So you need hold
and I
harmless.
know somebody personally who used it for a birthday party or for an anniversary party or something like that. So, you know, even they were saying, like, you don't advertise this. This is the cheapest thing in town.
It's on our website, no?
No, but we don't advertise it. It's like we don't have anything
Right,
else
it's
there.
there.
Saying that it's
Right.
out there.
Well, if we get a newsletter or something, I'm trying to work on that, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have something sitting up in the, we don't have anything up on the bulletin board at ShopRite or wherever, you know what I mean? But still, all right, so
Probably
getting
don't
off the subject really quickly. Security, it says here that in there it says the village reserves the right to retain a security service to provide security at any event to be held in the room. Who pays for that?
Paid
They
for
do.
that. Oh,
It doesn't say
doesn't
that.
say that.
But when I see them, before I give them okay to be there, they.
No, it's gotta
realize
say,
that.
It
it's
has
gotta
to say,
say
it
that
has
it-
to say it here.
Okay, then say.
It's gotta be there.
Well, if you ask me a question, I'm just saying what I've been doing.
No,
No, I
yeah,
understand, but it's gotta say it
All
though.
right, all
because
right,
you also
at the
have to-
renter's expense.
Yeah.
What clause is that in?
It's, I don't know, it's just a security, so it's gotta be.
Security.
See, security deposit home and police shall be given to
No. Didn't realize.
Yeah, right.
Seriously, actually, well.
I agree, everything he's saying, I agree.
Didn't realize.
Okay,
Pretty well, not well, not.
number
overly well known,
13,
but,
no
yeah.
warranty. Should the contract state that the spade, wow, that I can't even speak. I got mouth disease. That the space meets,
Maybe.
that the space meets and exceeds all relevant fire safety and building
yes.
codes, etc.
Yes.
Because it doesn't say that now.
No, I don't wanna say that,
Why?
Right.
because I'm not sure it does.
Okay, that's a very fair point.
No, really, I remember being in like, you know, I have some of these meetings in trailers,
Okay,
and they're
so-
complaining about fire, and I'm like, I'm in a
Okay.
trailer.
First of all, this is the village hall.
Isn't that our responsibility?
We actually do employ a building inspector and a fire inspector.
Yeah.
Can they not tell us whether or not?
Campbell does fire
I
extinguishers.
think that they can, and I think that they should, but I still don't think we should guarantee it, because something could happen between the time you sign the contract and the time the event is held, that makes that inaccurate.
All right, that's a fair point, but that's gotta be somewhere, that it's gotta be certified somewhere, that it's gotta state that.
Okay.
Because I could ask, you know, I as the renter coming in, okay, does this meet all the fire codes? And you have to sit there and say yes, so there should be a letter from somebody that
Yeah.
says that it meets or exceeds.
And I think it also should state the occupancy limit.
It does have 100.
It does, it's
Oh, it
a separate
does?
100.
Okay.
I actually went downstairs to go look, because I wasn't sure what it was.
100, yeah.
I didn't know if this, like I said, I
Yeah,
didn't know
haven't
if this
seen
was,
yet.
was real or not. And how is that enforced?
What?
How do we enforce the occupancy?
We go down count.
Who?
Me? I check when I open it, and I check during the day, and I check when I close.
You stand downstairs and you count the people as they're going in?
When they first come in, I let them fill up. I come back maybe 40 minutes or an hour later, so maybe, but depending on the hour we have a thing. I check, I can see how many chairs, how many tables. We only set up for like maybe 80 chairs and maybe how many tables. Once I see them full, if I see people in the middle, you never have more honestly than 40 to 60 people down there, I think.
Right, I mean, I have no idea, and I think just going downstairs, what did I see, how many are down there now? I mean, it's set up, so I don't know what's down there.
Right now, there's 66 chairs set up and a stage that holds 15, which is 66, and 15, which is 83.
Okay.
And then that in the kitchen, so we have room for that. That's not.
In and out the kitchen.
No, no.
Standing room in the kitchen.
Right. Matter of fact, I have that.
Okay.
So you want me to review the contract just for legal
Yeah.
adequacy, and then you guys can debate the fees?
Yeah, the fees are, I'm okay with the $100
I'm
bucks, I'm
okay
okay
with
with the
that.
250,
Yeah, I'm
and I'm okay with the 300.
And 75
And we
for
use
the
it, and
nonprofit.
we're using the deposit for,
For damage and stuff.
for damages and cleaning fees?
Yes. No, for damage, not cleaning fees.
Well, cleaning, they're supposed
Well,
to take
they
care
gotta
of, is
clean
that not
up.
Oh,
correct?
no, they clean up, that's their job, we don't clean up.
Right, but if
Yeah.
somebody didn't clean up,
Somebody
and we had to-
leaves, like,
Well,
tablecloths and
let me
everything.
say this to you guys, and I'll be honest with you, there's probably, and if Donna says it's no good, 30 or 40 checks in that box that are from probably me being here back in 16 that they never took. I don't know why, don't get me involved.
Or that they
What are you
never
talking
came
about?
back?
They never came,
They never picked up them 75
came to get
But
their
they're no good no more, Donna
security
said,
deposit.
because they have to, so I'm
6
saying.
months,
So
right, if
that-
after 60 days your check is no good,
No,
then you
they-
get
they-
the
they-
deposit, but.
I mean, I try to know
But
when
in other
in
words,
case somebody came back, I don't want to get
Right, you
trouble.
just tear it
So
up.
what, maybe about 40 of them, I
Yeah.
told God, I was cleaning up.
Yeah, but if we deposited it, boy, would they be
Oh,
right
boy,
there.
that'd be a big-
Yeah, they'd be right here. You're correct,
Give it up.
but
Um,
that wouldn't work.
I mean, that's all I had on my, all right. Contracts, insurance requirements, because I don't know what you do with individuals, so we have to have some sort of insurance rider on there for individuals,
Yeah,
because you're not gonna get a COI from an individual.
But there is an indemnification of the village eight, and then you
You can
have,
get a hold harmless for an
And the hold
individual,
harmless, yeah.
or, and there's also,
You know,
I know we used in Spring Valley an insurance company that had a rider for things like this, that then we kind of calculated how much does that rider cost us versus, what they pay, and then we just put
Folded it in there.
folded it into the fee so that
Okay.
we knew we were insured, so that's an option, so I'll note it when I go through it.
And do we have, since we have the senior room upstairs, is that the same, for instance, that they're using, somebody would hurt themselves or anything, individual?
well, that's just covered.
well, I have to assume that that's all
General
covered
liability.
under the general
Yeah,
liability
yeah.
I would say
and whatever else, so, yeah. I just don't wanna have somebody down there and something happened and then all of a sudden they're coming after us for it when we had nothing to do with it. That's all. It's all about mitigating that risk.
Very litigious world.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
All right. So you'll get that for us for the next, Okay, so next, I put on for discussion, parking. We're all, as far as I know, nobody voted on the overnight parking or the use of operation of motor vehicles 200 the traffic from this group that's here, and whether or not we're heading into the summertime. And I had a discussion with a resident the other day that their child was coming home from school, and it would be nice to be able to park. They have too many cars for their driveway and have to play musical cars every morning. Who goes to work first?
Okay.
Were you talking to me?
If you're talking,
Were you
I was
talking to
gonna
me?
say,
I'm there every day.
like I say, it's an issue on many different fronts. So whether or not, mine is whether or not we want to hear what, my reason for putting it up here was to hear whether we should put it up for a public hearing, to hear what the public has to say.
Well, there's, I'm not exactly sure what you're looking for because this is,
Well, this is just what I don't know whether like McValue knows what our current, you don't drive. So it's like your current, well, that's what I was going to say. Are you aware at all about what our overnight parking regulations are or aren't for the village?
Just a little bit about it.
Okay. What's your understanding or your recollection, just to see what it was?
I will tell you, at one point early on last year, I did go for a ride on the neighborhood of the village, and it was pointed out that some of the parking, when there's too many cars, very dangerous to get emergency vehicles to certain areas or certain homes.
This is about overnight parking.
So,
This is about overnight parking.
yeah, so overnight parking,
How
many?
I didn't know you went,
are they
went
gonna-
overnight.
Are
I'm
they,
sorry.
are they a large amount of cars that are blocking emergency vehicles? So my concern is the safety.
Safety versus, somebody, like I say, There's a side there, I don't know whether, would you like to?
Well, like I said, so
That's what I say, there's many facets to this.
So we do, because my driveway is fairly short. So, and then when you get kids that get cars, we end up going who's leaving first, who's leaving second, and we do the big car shuffle almost every night. Is it annoying? Yes. But I will say this, and I can say it on my street in particular. If you were to park, and we have people that park, like they'll have guests and stuff, and we'll say, please don't park behind, like across from my driveway.
Especially when you back
That,
in.
A, I don't want to back into your car.
Right.
B, you don't want one of my kids backing into your car.
You don't, man.
I don't want my kids backing into your car. But if you were to park across the street from each other, I guess to what you just said, you'd never get anything up the street. And so I do see the absolute safety piece of that is you just never would. You just would.
Yeah, and then there's the people, I mean, we had residents call up and complain about, friends of theirs that got a ticket because how it's posted or not posted in the village. I did a little bit of I had a survey, basically just found out, thank you, Ralph, basically other villages, that have it, and, there, as far as I could find out, there's only one other village, like ours. The rest are, have, limited time. I mean,
And we have
the
pretty
previous-
wide roads, by the way.
No.
We're pretty, we're reliant compared to Suffern. Because the Suffern has just what pretty much most of the other villages do, no parking overnight if snow is forecasted for that night. Then that's whether it snows or not.
Don't they also have it, isn't this what, I'm looking at this thing right here, doesn't this also say that they have, is it Suffern? No, who's this?
No.
Wesley Hills, what's this by permit? I didn't understand that.
Yeah, no, Wesley Hills is the other one that has the parking like ours, but by permit.
Us in Pomona is like us too.
Well,
Well, this is says here,
Yeah,
annual,
yeah.
yearly.
that's it.
So, but anyway, look, I agree with what Kevin's saying, I agree with what Medalia's saying, I agree with what you're saying, because, alright, so to use your example, alright, on Church Road, okay, there's a family, there's a house on Church Road that has, I swear to you, every morning there are at least 6 cars in their driveway. How they do the morning shuffle is beyond me. But where their house is, and would you want their cars? Now, obviously, they have 6 cars. 6 people are driving cars in that house. Individuals, okay? Do you really want all those cars parked on Church Road on the bank?
Do you think people would empty their driveway to park 6 cars?
That particular house, yes.
They would take all their.
I don't think they would take them all, but they would take 2.
One or two.
Yeah, but their house is on a curve. It's actually on the bend of the road.
Right.
So it's like you can't see, so it obscures that. Then I've also experienced on Hampton, where on, what's the window, One Hampton? Is it One Hampton? So
Yeah.
1-3. So I'm going to say from 3, that house,
Yep.
going down to 3, 5, 7. That's the Laurel House is 7, I think, 7 or
Yes.
9, whatever it is.
7, 9. Yeah.
Okay, where that they park on both sides of the street coming around that curve.
Coming around the curve.
Scary shit.
Right.
Sorry, excuse my English. That's
Right.
scary. And it's not that you can't do it. If you've got a truck, you're done. Somebody is losing your rearview mirror without even thinking about it, and that's happened a few times. Also down further on Hampton, it's happened as well. Down around the 16, 18, by the Simon House. I believe it is. I don't know who it is, I don't care who it is, it's just what it is. Where that's an issue. It also happens on Ackerman, where that I've got people even across the street, coming out of the driveway. My next door neighbor's got black cars, but my neighbor across the street has the dark cars, and even coming out, even looking in the cameras, you can't see the
You
cars.
can't see that. Yeah.
So it's.
Well, let me
And that's
give
just
you,
my
During
experience.
the day, I mean,
Then-
I'm just thinking.
Now let's take it a different. Now let's take it a step further. I'm walking my dog at night, and I've got the reflective vest on the dog because my dog is black. You never see her at night. I got the flashlights. I got everything else like that. With the cars on the road, you're taking less space because we don't have sidewalks. You're leaving less space for me to actually move out of the way. Same thing with now, we have an increased population of people that are walking on the streets now where we don't have sidewalks. You're not giving them, and they're not all wearing reflectors. I don't wear reflectors either, I just carry a flashlight for the most part. Yeah, no.
let me give you one example
overnight
that we
party.
had a few years ago. Someone threw a party in a community room, and there were so many cars, there were double parking cars, the ambulance came through, could not get in. The fire truck and the ambulance come there daily, 2 or 3 times a day,
That's
and
unfortunate.
they couldn't get in that night, and it was really, dangerous, because you have to reach the person that's,
Right, because you never know when
needs the
that's going to
service.
happen.
Yeah. So
Doesn't
that's
matter at all.
really dangerous.
So, I mean, valid points on both, whether or not, which way to go. Like I say, we're coming up, people are having parties, people invite people to stay over. Whether or not we should throw this, whether or not we want to open this up to a public hearing, or is it,
Well, if you're opening up to a public hearing, you're looking to change the law.
or is it the opinion of this board that the majority would not like to have, that's just exactly what we're doing, is having a discussion, which way we're going. I mean, we're here, I was one who brought it up, Nick Dahlia, how do you feel about it?
I feel like my nephew had a party. He lives in Craigmere. Bunch of cars. They all had to park by the Grand Union. They all went down. Then they drove the people up because you can't block the roads. You can't block anything. So I think safety is the biggest issue here, and the danger of not being able to get vehicles.
Ralph put it better about the traffic lights.
Or
Whatever
we're soon
you
to
have-
have, and you were saying about the flashlights, we're gonna have the roads well lit very soon.
Well,
So we're not worried about the reflectors and cars.
Peter's walking the dog
If you're concerned, I'll turn the lights up a little bit, cause somebody's gotta have control of those illuminations.
it's actually funny because the one right across the street from, let's see, which one is going up? I guess it's let's see, 1, 3, I guess it would be 3 and 5 on Ackerman. It's got it seems like it's got a motion detector on it. I don't know if there's something actually wrong with the bulb, because every time you walk up and all of a sudden it just, it's up, anyway. But
So McDaddy, you were a no, Peter?
No.
No.
I don't think so.
Kevin?
I enjoy moving the cars every night, no matter what time of night. You know what?
They should hire you.
I will absolutely agree that it's inconvenient, but I have done it for years. We've had company.
How many years has this been in? It's only been 2 years?
We've done this for forever.
I'm
Because
saying not
we
too
don't park on the street. We just will not park on the
Well,
street.
your street is skinny. You can't.
My street is fairly skinny
Yeah,
anyway,
you're narrow now.
but even so, it's just, we've gotten so used to just putting in, and we've actually asked our neighbors, hey, can somebody park your driveway?
And
We're
everybody
just
else,
used to it.
you know,
We just are. We're just so used
And
to
there's
it.
always, first of all,
And-
there's always.
And if you park on my street, guaranteed you got 10 people going, who the hell is that?
Right.
So, seriously. So,
You should have invited them to your party.
I say no to my nephew.
There you go.
But remember, if we get somebody into Grand Union, they won't be able to park there.
That's parking lot.
Well,
They're gonna park there.
That's his route.
Put a tag on there, car to park at Walmart, take the bus line.
I mean, again, so, alright.
Alright.
Can I just, if that's over, can I just revisit the, something from the, community room contract? Not even just the contract, just the actual thing itself. When someone said security, I think it's kind of sat in my brain. We actually have people that rent, they rent downstairs, and they actually have access to all the, upstairs. Nothing stops them from.
Well, no, the doors are locked.
What doors are locked?
The office doors.
The office doors are
Well,
locked.
doors are locked. I mean,
locked
just
and
walking
gated.
around, just walking around the hallways, and just stuff like that. I mean, is that no big deal?
Everything is closed. Right? Everything is
Oh,
locked,
I can,
right?
Yeah, no, I know the doors.
I
are
can,
Good point.
I'm just saying,
I
people
could
walking around.
put in
That's a good
the
point.
draft of the new contract that, there's, no access to, areas other than the room and the restrooms.
Yeah, but they come up here and they twist,
Well, they have to come in because they come in this way.
No, they come through the
Then
side.
they go down to the elevator or they go down to the store.
That's access.
But you're saying they go upstairs.
Right.
There's nothing to
That's
stop you
stop them
from
from
going
upstairs, and
upstairs.
they're
There's no physical barrier to stop you from going
up
upstairs.
upstairs. I'm just thinking liability.
No, that's a good point because
Maybe,
that
could we
piece of
post
masking
that door
paper.
like, emergency exit only or something so that people are discouraged from
Right now, it's a
entering
piece of
it?
masking tape across the
Across the stairs.
across the stair. And it
Yeah.
says, "Do
Okay.
not
It's
enter."
a physical barrier.
Okay.
Technically.
Let me just say this, we're in business since 1991, we have the village since 2009, we never had a problem, we have cameras, we're making a mountain out of a molehill, I can't believe it. Nobody realized it, you see that door there? I locked those doors, see the doors that slide in and out, and I put a lock on so nobody can come around this area, because I'm always afraid there to go upstairs, so I hear what you're saying.
It's just a door. They ain't-
No, I hear what you're saying, but then the other side of the point is, you could put in the contract, you have to hire somebody for 4 hours, it costs you maybe another $200, so now it could be treatment. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do.
So if you rent the room downstairs and you fall on the stairs up here, if you're going downstairs, are you liable for being, what's
Well,
the?
technically, if
What happens
the
if they go
group
upstairs?
provides us with a certificate of insurance, then we'd have double insurance, and the insurance company should kind of fight it out as to what would be primary, what would be secondary.
Listen, if you really wanna rent the room practically right, if you really wanna do it here for the safety, first of all, let me back up a little bit, so you understand some Somalia. The way the law was written, the way we got that grant money was very clear by Ellen Jaffe. I got all the documents. You can't make money on it. So let's get that straight first, because it was a grant that gave that room, the development I developed down there, on 25,000. So it's very, very timid of what you do. That's why I said, when by raising this much, it's just breaking even with the update stuff. I'm not saying that what they're doing down there is 100% kosher. What I mean by that is that they are very safe. I come back all the time and have cameras. I watch. I'm always around. So even when Phil was here and Ronnie was here and Dennis, I always came around to check the village. Even then, the mayor used to come over. I used to see him come open the door here and watch something go down. He'd come back with Christine in the air. So it's really well. I hear what you're saying, Brian. It's just that it never happened. There's really nothing upstairs to steal.
Well, nothing ever happens. Nothing ever happens. Though. Happens. That's
I hear what you're saying.
what I'm with.
I mean, there's always a curious one in the
So
group.
it's
We all
not-
know, but we don't give anybody, everything's
I'm with
locked for the most part.
Yes, right.
And you know what? And if
I
somebody
even
wants
lock
to
these
steal,
doors. I don't know if you know these doors are locked too.
and if somebody wants to steal something,
No,
they'll always steal it.
I don't leave nothing unlocked, really.
I'd rather they steal it than break something.
Yes, you're right.
I have.
Upstairs I've been, but downstairs I
That's
haven't.
creepy too.
That's creepy.
Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Alright. What's next on the hit parade?
Approval of minutes?
Approval of the minutes.
Oh, I'm sitting here. Oh, sweet.
Alright, so can we have somebody move the motion to approve approval of the minutes?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yo.
Somebody make a motion to approval of vouchers?
I'll make that motion.
Wait.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are you? Okay.
Aye.
All right, anyone have old business? Okay.
I do.
Okay.
I have a question. Well, I would like to know what's an update on the hillside property. Has the building inspector been there, the fire inspector? What's the update on the hillside?
Hillside.
Hillside.
Remind
Talking
me
about-
again which one, Hillside?
Hillside
The
is
lady-
Hillside
the lady
that
that came
goes
to talk to us.
200-year-old house.
The lady who
The
came
chicken.
last time, the chicken,
Oh, yes,
Okay.
okay, yes. So, I spoke with her and I emailed her. I had, and I told her in advance, I said I had a particularly busy week last week because I had a court filing. I said, however, I will, yeah, I said I will reach out to you though and try and get everybody together. And then Gordon Wren emailed everybody back. I don't think he knew that I was still on it. It was kind of like this behavior was outrageous and this and that. And I was like, I emailed her right back and said I'll set something up. So I have to just get with Lou to get out there. And whoever wants to go on a site visit can go on a site
Well,
visit. Hillside Avenue.
Can I,
Yeah.
just a couple things.
Sure.
They talk about, she talks about the 200-year-old building.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple things with that. The 200-year-old building, they don't need a CFO. They're arguing that they need a CFO, they don't need a CFO. It predates every bit of zoning possible.
Right.
They have not updated it, obviously. Now, the goats, the horses, the chickens,
Yeah.
they're allowed to have. But they have to make sure they stay in the property. So that's a code issue.
Mm-hmm. Animal enforcement.
So they have, they can have them.
You can
Because
have
you
them
gotta think,
to a
you gotta
certain
think,
number.
they had the EPA, they had the health department, they had the Rambo PD, and they had another agency. They had two federal agencies, two state agencies, and,
Mm-hmm.
two all
Right.
same thing. Now, yes, they have to maintain. They can't have the chickens run around, and you can't have a chicken with the head cut off. Now, as far as the bus going around in the driveway that they were complaining about, I actually went to, I happened to be in that area of Crooked Hill during work in about 8:30, and I was, it's right by there. And the bus actually pulls in, doesn't it? It goes in, turns around, and it's a U driveway, turns around the U driveway. There's a Rambo police officer there. I talked to the Rambo police officer. I knew the Rambo police officer, but I talked to him. I'm like, I have a question for you. I'm like, the bus doing what it just did. Is that illegal? They said it's illegal if the property owner says it's illegal. If the property owner says, no, you can't be turning around my property, then it's trespass.
Yeah, sure.
If the property owner allows it, the property owner is taking on that liability. The property owner is allowing the bus to turn around. So there's nothing they can do. There's nothing we can even do.
Yeah.
So we can't do anything about the hillside.
No. There's code.
There were some things that they were bringing up that we can't touch
Yeah.
because
Correct. But
Everybody would
someone
like us
said
to
there was
touch
a goat.
everything, but we
Exactly. But
Yeah.
someone said there was a goat in their yard. No, they got to maintain the goat. They got a
Yeah.
goat. They got to keep a goat in their yard. That's a code thing. But as far as as far as the house is concerned, and they're talking about it's got no got no CO, got no CO. It doesn't need a CO.
Yeah.
It's
It's 200 years old.
and again the ASPCA was there.
Yeah.
Said those, and I spoke with the guy. I said, I wouldn't, he goes, I wouldn't want my 2 horses here. He goes, but it's perfectly humane.
Right.
It's fine.
Well, I'll look at the animal section
But
of
again,
the code.
yeah, he has to maintain, or they,
Yeah.
whoever the entity
Right,
is,
right.
has to make sure that these, that,
Yeah,
you know,
but it's not
on
a
their
property
property.
maintenance nightmare.
Correct.
Well, so here's the issue, I think, and I spoke to Lou quickly about it, and I will follow up with her. Like I said, I did email her and just told her, you know, this week is just a buster. Up until today, I literally got something filed like 24 minutes under the deadline. But it sounds to me like it's a combination of police issues and code issues and maybe no issues, but a lot of the police and code issues are like they happen for a moment. You have to have a complainant, and each incident is a one-time shot that the police then you have to have a complainant, then you have to go in, you have to prove it. So like every time an animal gets loose, it's just like a noise ordinance violation. You gotta prove every single one. It's not like presumed. So, I mean, I can educate people on that. They might not like to hear it, but I mean, that's what I do for a living, is try and educate people on these things and in a way that is respectful and nice. And if there's a real problem, we'll try and
If
address
there's
it.
a goat that comes out, and I know goat sounds funny, but to me, but if there is a goat that comes onto your property, obviously you call the police, but
But by the
literally
time we get over there, it might be back on the other.
But
Yeah.
if you take the picture, then you talk about it could be you're
Right,
in the
but then-
violation
You got an
statute.
issue.
You got an issue, but
Right.
then the question to the other resident is, like, how much of your life do you want to spend pursuing the fact that a goat stepped over onto your property when, you know,
Hey, look,
You've seen that email thread?
I guess
what do you
there's,
think?
yeah, a lot of time.
And I'm not,
I-
I'm just saying that.
When
in
I
general.
set it up, Natalia, I'll let you know. Okay? Try and set up for next week. It's just, since Lou's part-time and he's in the afternoons and I'm in largely in the mornings on most days, but maybe we can do something, next court date. Like, he could come in a little early, I could come in a little early, and we could go over there before, it gets dark.
So that's from me looking
know,
into
okay.
everything I could. That's
You
unfortunately.
have a goat in your backyard.
And
No, I don't have a goat in mine. I have chickens. 2 houses down, they have chickens in there,
Yeah.
and it's
I thought about it, but go, because
And the
I
chickens are-
personally
and
don't
the
like
chickens
mowing
are-
the lawn.
Yeah.
come into my backyard. The only thing that drives me absolutely insane is that it drives my poor dog absolutely
Right,
insane.
exactly.
I've been able
And
to
my
do
dog,
that.
and my dog doesn't
Well, is
bark.
the chicken laid out when it's in your yard, and do you get ownership of the eggs that they got?
Actually, you do, because my son-in-law has a house upstate.
But I just went
And
down
he's-
and
he could take
talked to
eggs
them
from
and just go like,
chicken.
give
I have a
no.
neighbor with
Right, but the
chickens,
thing
and
is,
I have
I'm
a
sure
standing
there's
order
some-
with her for a dozen eggs, like
Yeah.
once a week.
my
There's
dog-
also talk about, people threatening and stuff like that. Someone steps on your property and tells you that you have to move. You know what? They should be
Yeah,
pursued.
if there's real
that's
harassment, they
illegal.
should
That's
call the
dress trash.
police
You
and-
call the
and-
police,
call the police.
You gotta get
Right.
and if
Right.
that happens, you
So-
gotta continue
We
to
do
do
have a
this.
no-knock law. We do have
Right.
we have all that stuff. And
So
blah, blah,
basically,
blah.
all they asked for
Yeah.
was a meeting
Mhm.
between themselves, the code inspector, the zoning inspector,
I just thought on
to
site
talk about
would
the
be better.
violations.
Yeah.
So-
just 'cause I haven't
Well, the
seen
vi-
it, so.
what they
Yes,
what
what
they
But
it
if
should
they,
be about their
if they feel
complaints. Correct.
uncomfortable
Correct.
going and standing in front of the person's
Correct.
house and having an
So-
on-site meeting, we'll bring them in here, show me pictures, and we'll go through
But
it.
Right.
and
we can do that.
like she
So-
said, and I understand what they said,
Yeah,
like,
we can
it's
do
a
that.
200-year-old house, and it's a shame, but the thing is, the fact that
Oh.
it wasn't declared a historic house,
That's too bad.
that
yeah.
unfortunately is a shame, and there is no construction going on, so
Mhm.
there's, if if there was something going, unfortunately, it's a
Well,
kind of, you gotta think, 2 federal agencies, 2 state agencies were there,
Any other old business?
Okay, me, Mayor, can I talk?
Yes.
Okay. You're all talking about 2 Hillside Avenue. Code enforcement, building inspector all went. They all met with the owner of the property, The code enforcement said he thought that was a tree, that the gentleman said that a whole brush was built up. He took pictures and all, he's cleaning it up. He talked about the animals, he told him there was cars there, left there. He asked them to be moved, they're being moved. If you go back now, they're being moved. So he was supposed to give me a letter today for the board.
Oh, Rose,
but
when did that happen? I'm sorry.
The next day,
Oh, okay.
we went over, and we did it, well, he did it,
Like
and Lou
me,
went over.
okay.
Because remember, that guy is got a building permit to do work over there, so he has something going over as well, the owner of the property. But the point I'm saying is that there were a lot of things that they couldn't see from the road that the code enforcement went in with Lou and they seen. There was, which he thought was a tree, which, was brushed with the gentleman said, Bobby said that night, that was all dropped. I told him, Medaya, I'll call you when I get the material. But they never got I was supposed to get it today, but I was just back and forth different things, I didn't get it. But I'll give you a shot what Corey wrote up, we told the man and all. I was gonna send it to Heather from Coupons and all, but I wanted to let the board know first before we did anything going forward. But it's been looked at, he's gonna go back again on Thursday to see what's going on, to go forward. Now, you can meet with them and talk about it.
No. If that's already been done, what I would suggest is that he goes back on Thursday. After that, we do a quick follow-up memo. We send what we've discovered to Ms. Frederico and say that, per your request, we have people out here looking at it. If you would still like to meet at Village Hall with, anybody to discuss these issues, contact me and we'll set up a meeting.
It's up to you. Just want you to know, it was addressed immediately and they
Okay,
did go out.
thank you. I didn't know. Thank you.
So they have no more complaints.
No,
I wouldn't
They
say
got
that.
the answers, but they got answers, it sounds like.
No,
They might not.
Basada, what happened was they spoke to the owner. The owner said he was gonna correct all the things, they were gonna go back. With the horses being run around, which I think what the deputy mayor said is legal with the chicks, just gotta make sure they're on the property. They also suggested if you put a little fence up so that they can go out, they can stay around it so people can't say they run over. So that's been addressed. It's not been completed because he didn't go back to see that they did it. But they have a conversation, they called us the other day about saying they're doing it. And Corey went back just to look when he do inspection, I'm sorry, I didn't like to say name, code enforcement, and he saw some of the cars gone.
Yeah, if you want to package it all up and send it to me so I can send it out to her with an email,
Sure.
just so she knows I'm not blowing her off and we can CC Mr. Ran and say if you still want to come in and talk.
Can I just say that the open building permit that is on 2 Hillside, nothing's being done, and a lot of their concerns are what's going to be done. We can't foresee we can only handle
You'll either do
as
it or it'll expire.
whatever we can only handle what comes up. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. I mean, I think we're
Right,
on
but
the
I mean, if they do have a building permit, then it should say what they're doing, what they're planning to do.
What they're planning to do, right? Exactly. What I mean, but it
And
could
we
be,
should find out
be
how old
vague, and
the
they could say,
building
"Oh,
permit,
and
because
it's very well
they
could be.
expire after
Oh, I know,
that
you
time.
can always
You can always
what it, but
vague it, but
want to make sure their concerns are addressed.
but we have.
That's
Oh
all.
no,
You know,
absolutely,
that-
How old the
absolutely.
building permit?
The building permit was just issued when I say the end of January.
Okay, so it's only.
All right, so we're talking 2-3 weeks.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So I mean,
Okay.
this.
But let me just say this to the board. You do have an office that works. They do go out there. As you understand, they gotta be very careful
Well, they
what
would
they
count
do
on that.
and make sure they cover everything. And they do write things up. They take pictures and all. I mean, there is a lot of activity going on from this village. I mean, I have to say, in all over. I mean, I go on Rustic, there's a stream up there that you go and look at. They must have threw wood into it all. I mean, there is a lot of activity. Remember, you have 2 major players here that are part-time, which is kind of hard for a village that never had that for all the years here. So it's being done, and some people like to throw, you don't see them here tonight, but like to throw dirt in our face, which we try to work hard. I think we all try to bring to the table the right things going forward, and I try to do that to you.
Disputing that, I'm so happy to hear that they went right out.
And the thing is,
Yeah, that's good.
it's like you want to, again, that information about coming to you. I knew that. The thing is, though,
Right.
to say that, it's almost like
Well,
you're
yeah,
protected, and
yeah,
it's like I'm
it's
not.
not supposed to be a question and
Right,
answer
it's like,
deposition
this
kind
is
of
just what it is.
atmosphere.
I'm so-
And,
and it's not, and I can't
that-
apologize for it. That's what
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the code. You
yeah.
want them to follow the code. That's the
I
code.
know.
And public comment is that, it's 3 minutes of public comment addressed
And
to
that's
the
what
board,
we-
it's not
yeah.
question and answer.
Right.
And I don't wanna
And
get
nobody-
into question
and
and
you-
answer
and
at public
I
comment.
think we all know that.
Alright, any other old business?
Nope.
And Ralph, thank you on that part. New business.
I have nothing yet.
Okay. Once more.
Alright, so I would like to meet,
Wait, new business.
Oh, okay.
Now, we have to make a resolution, because I just realized I have to put this on the website in the code book. You know, we made some changes in the bill department, we can condense some of the language in the tree law and the other law. And so this is another one, we're making it condensed so it's a little more easier for people to read. So at the next meeting, if you all agree, I got this 3, I think, this one and 2 others I gave you 2 weeks ago, of how we condense some of the language in this as well. If any of you have anything to say, you can talk to us.
Would you mind emailing the 3 of them to me?
Sure.
So I can, if I have comments, I can do it.
Sure, no, okay. But the board
Is
has.
this for the rental
Yes,
property?
yes. It's a tenant rental. Yeah, I have the old one here, it's a big one, which I didn't want to make copies.
No, that's fine, no, that's fine.
It's kind of boring and stuff. It's like this type. It's like three pages if you see.
Right.
So I do it back and forth. So instead of doing it, we made it consolidate, so it's a little easier for people to do it than the other 2 I got. But they had said we should make a resolution at the last meeting to clarify this is okay in the book. So we do it. Thank you.
To make it illegal. Sure.
What is this for?
Rental for the rental property, where people wanna rent their property out, rent the,
This
This
is
way
a
we
new
know-
tenant business
He's
operating
got
permit?
3, so there's the new tenant business operating permit, the rental registry form,
yeah,
and one other form that he feels could be consolidated to be much less cumbersome, so he's gonna send those to me, and then if you guys agree, we'll vote on it.
The only thing I may ask you, Amy, on that one, I was talking to him about it, but I don't know. I want to put the affidavit on the back rather than have 2 pages. Is that okay or no?
Sure.
Or is it better to have it separate?
No, I actually like it on the back.
Okay. That's what you want to change. Thank you.
Can I ask?
Yes.
I just have exactly new business. I just sent you an email that you'll see, because I don't know who does it. Somebody's got to send somebody over to clear out a storm drain. Is that Belleville?
Yes.
Okay, so then I sent it to you correctly.
Thank you.
Okay. I've been meaning to do it for the past 3 weeks, and I just haven't done
What's
it.
the address?
It is on Ackerman Avenue between 15 and Donald Road. I sent you a picture of it.
Okay. You don't have the address of the house? 15 Ackerman?
15 Ackerman.
Okay, that's
It's
enough.
between 15 Ackerman and the corner of Donald.
Okay, all right. I'll call Mike.
Ralph,
Yes?
ask one more, Emma Gunn's tenant issue. Who takes care of when you cross the street, there's a rubber safety mat?
That's right.
on the-
Will you walk out
Yes.
from the
Yeah,
curb
those
to the
bubbles.
tree?
Yeah, the bubbles.
It's a handicap.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
handicap.
those
county.
have to be,
It's broke?
yeah, they
The
have to
county.
be replaced.
The county.
Okay, I'll call the county
Because
tomorrow.
the tenants are complaining about that.
Okay. Did they come and change the dumpster?
Thank you.
Did they change it?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
They still have issues, but.
We try.
Any other new business? Alright, so, like to make the motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel and contracts?
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah,
Going into
Is this
executive
just-
session
my shirt?
at
Just-
9.
Pretty much.
9